Welcome to WinDevCon 2007 WebDev General Advices. In this course we're going to talk about different browser settings, JavaScript, Java, and how to minimize support calls and also help users get a rich experience using your website. So you have to remember the first advice that you have to take care of is that WebDev is not WinDev. Even if it looks really like WinDev, it's not WinDev. You have to use a different different development philosophy for the web. We already have a specific course on that. I will not redo it now, but remember that if you try to code for the web the same way that you are coding for WinDev, you're going to get in trouble. So that's the first thing. Then you have to realize that when you develop for the web, you can have two different targets. The first one is when you develop a website for one company or one group of users, specific one. It can be an intranet, it can be an extranet, it can be for an association, a company, sports club, whatever it is. But when you are developing for one specific group of users, you are in a different situation and you shouldn't do the same thing. In that case, most of the time they are going to be professionals, which means that you have more control over them, and one thing that you can do is that you can force them to use one or two browsers. It's the kind of setting where you can say, well, this will work only on Internet Explorer or only on Internet Explorer and Firefox, and you can solve many of your problems that way. These professionals or this group of users are motivated to use your system because your system is there to solve a problem for them. So they have a real motivation to be there, and they will take the time to learn how to use your website, how to do this, how to do that. There will be a learning curve. Perhaps you will have the possibility to teach them. These people will probably contact you for the support. So all that are good things because it means that well, you have the time to deal with them in a deep way. They don't have a choice most of the time. They're professional. Their direction said we are using this tool and they have to use this tool. So they're not going to leave because this thing is not working or that thing is not practical. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't make all the possible effort to make your website as practical as possible. It means that they have no choice, so it's easier for you. Another point that you have to consider when you're building a website is the load on your server. Are you going to have 3 users at the same time or 5,000? Depending on the answer on that question, you're going to need a totally different setup, hardware, way of developing, and so on and so forth. So this is a very important thing. When you're developing for a group, a company, or this kind of thing, you know the load in advance. You don't know it exactly, but you have a very good idea. If it's a company and you have 300 people in the company, you know that you will have these 300 people using your website at the same time during work hour between 8 and 5, by example. So it means that your server needs to be able to manage data and to manage data access and display pages and so on for 300 users at the same time. You have to take that into account. Of course, the second case is the general public in whatever sector. When you are creating a website that has this kind of target in mind, remember that you will get all kinds of users. And by all kinds of user, I mean you're not talking about professional anymore. It's going to be a range from your grandmother to your granddaughter, depending on your age, of course, and anybody and his cousin will be susceptible at some point to access your website. So you have to code with that in mind. It's not a public of professional anymore, which means that This user will be even less tech savvy than your normal professional user will be. In a company, people are supposed to be able to use a computer, and if they are not, they are supposed to get some training to make them able to use the computer and the system that you're building for them. This will not be the case with your general public, which means that they have to be able to use your website immediately without asking themselves any question. Everything has to be absolutely obvious. Remember also that these people can be anywhere in the world. So time zone, language, anything like that is totally up to you. You will have to manage the number of languages that you want to deal with. There are many things that depends on that. If they are anywhere in the world, does that mean that you have support 24/7? All these kind of things are questions that you have to ask yourself. Who do you try to reach? And of course, remember also that these people will be using any kind of hardware, Mac, PC, mobiles device. Anything that is available to access the web is susceptible to be used to access your website. They will be using all kind of operating system, old version of Windows, old version of Mac OS, Linux, whatever else. So at the same time, they will be using all kind of browser. Remember the list of browser that we talked about previously? Well, all of this browser is possibly at some point going to connect to your website. Is that something that you want to deal with or not? At what point do you stop? Remember what we talked about. Internet Explorer added to Firefox means nearly 93% of all users out there, according to the last statistic I was able to find. If that's the case, is it important to spend your time and your money dealing with the 7% remaining? Is it worth it? So all that are questions that you will have to deal with when you create this kind of website. Very often the people connecting to your website don't know you. They have no idea who you are, who your company is, or who your customer is when you're, of course, building a website to your customer. At the same time, you have a totally unknown load. You generally hope for a big one because it would mean that you have a huge success with your website, but how do you prepare for a huge load when you don't know in advance? And one phenomenon that happens from time to time is when you create a website, it starts to work, and suddenly you have one news guy who find out about your website and loves it. And what does he do? Well, he talks about it. Well, in the paper or on the radio or on TV even. And what happened? Your server melts down because suddenly you have 5,000 people trying to access your server at the exact same time, and well, you just don't have the bandwidth, you don't have the processing power, you don't have the hardware necessary to manage this kind of load. So basically, success just killed you. And at that point, what do you do? Because of course all these people who heard about you and wanted to access your website are basically lost, because when they try to access it once and it doesn't work, they don't come back. So all that are considerations that you have to really think about when you are building this kind of website. And remember one thing. When you look at statistics about websites, you'll see that users are leaving your website in less than 1 minute. In fact, most of them are leaving your website in less than 20 seconds. Why? Well, because many people are coming on a website thinking it's doing something or another and looking at the website and saying, oh no, it's not that, it's not the right one, and leaving. So that's okay. If they were not looking for you, that's okay. But also because many people are coming on your website and your website is doing exactly what they are looking for. Only when they look at the website, it doesn't look like it, or it's not obvious how to do it, or it's too complex, it's too this, it's too that. They don't like it and they just leave, and you have no way of getting them back. So the first impression that you give on your website is extremely important, and you have to make sure that you will do something that is exactly what you need to do for your users. Of course, there are a few things that you have to do in both cases. You will want to make their experience as rich as possible. You need to have something coming out of the website that will make them come back, or will them make happy to work on your system. So you need to have results. You absolutely need to have an easy way of using your website. It has to be as obvious as possible, really simple. Remember, they will not come back, so it has to be extremely easy. And you also want to make their experience as fast as possible. How many people are just stopping using a website because, well, the answer is too long? I know I'm one of them. If I go on a new website and I don't have an answer in 3 seconds, when I click on the link, I say, okay, blah, next one. Because there will be a next one. I will find another website that does exactly the same thing, or nearly the same thing, and that does it fast. So that's extremely important too. And of course, you want to have this website extremely reliable. Again, you're going to lose your potential customer extremely fast if they click on something and they have an error because the link doesn't point to anything. If you have an error when accessing the data, if all this kind of thing, it's not acceptable to have that on a website if you want to have any kind of success. So in order to do that, you really have to think web. Remember this web development philosophy? That's exactly what I'm talking about. Do something that is extremely light. You want to be fast. You want the display to happen on your customer browser as fast as possible. And for that, forget all the big image, the big thing, the big that. If you don't know how to make a pretty website that is light at the same time, then you have to ask somebody who does know, a specialist in graphism for the web. And these people are going to make very pretty things that are not heavy. So if you don't know how to do that, don't try to do it yourself. It's not extremely expensive to have a professional create a template for you that will give you that capability. Again, think simple. You want your user to be able to do everything that they have to do in your website without having to call the support. And the main reason for that is that if they are not professional working on your website in a mandatory way, they will not call the support. They will just go on another website. That's 95% of the time. So it's not acceptable to say, well, if they don't know how to do it, they will call. No, that is not possible. You will have to work harder than that and make sure that they know how to do things. Clear. Think really everything has to be clear. Remove function from your website. Don't add function. All this has to be really as obvious as possible. In order to make you understand really what I'm talking about, I'm going to give you a little display of some horror story that I found on the web. It's just a few websites that I had to use in the last few weeks. It's not old website, it's not even website made by a small kid in his garage. No, we are talking about institutional website, big ones, big companies, money people, and the kind of stupid things that they are doing on the web that gives them a very bad image. So let's have a look. The first example is coming from a French bank. I'm not giving you the name because, well, you probably won't know what bank I'm talking about, so it's not interesting. It's not that I don't want to name, it's not a problem. Well, one of the French bank I'm using has a link on his main page, okay? That goes nowhere if you're not logged in. Imagine that. You arrive on the main page of the website and you see a link and you click on it. The link is there, so you can use it. And you didn't log in yet. Nothing asks you to log in. You can log in, there's another link for that, but nothing asks you to do that. So you click on the link and you arrive on another web page that says, you must log in, please go back. They are not giving you the possibility to log in there. They are not putting the link as grayed on the main page as long as you're not logged in. No, they're just letting the link be there, and if you don't know that you have to log in first, you arrive on a web page that doesn't even have a link to the main page. They just say, you must log in, please go back. That is totally ridiculous. It's unbelievable, but that's a very big French bank doing that on its website. Now let's talk about an example that you perhaps already saw, the Blue Cross of Louisiana. Yes, we are dealing with these people, and you want to change your password and it just doesn't work when you're using Firefox. Okay, that's not a problem. You should be using Internet Explorer. Well, yes, but imagine you try to change your password. You enter the new one, you validate, you click on the button validation, and the website doesn't remember your new password. The only problem is that if you're trying to do the same thing in Internet Explorer, then you have another field that is not visible in Firefox, a checkbox called Remember My Password. So, what is wrong with that picture? Imagine. First, why only in Internet Explorer? I don't know. Why, if they choose not to use any other browser than Internet Explorer, why don't they say so if you're using anything else? It's just a simple test. So, if you test only for Internet Explorer, can't you say so? It's just 2 or 3 lines of JavaScript. It's not that big of a deal. I'm sure you can do it. Now, the second problem is that, okay, even if I use Internet Explorer, why did I enter my new password if I don't want you to remember it? What is the meaning of that checkbox? It doesn't make any sense. So it's only working in Internet Explorer, and even when it's working, it doesn't make sense. Well, you can do better than that. You have the money. I know we're paying enough for the health insurance. Another website. It's a news website in the Caribbean. You know that I live in the Caribbean, so from time to time I want to see the news. Well, I tried to find anywhere on their website a link to contact them. You know, a webmaster, editorial link, anything, any way to contact them. I was not able to find any of them, and I'm generally quite good on the web. No way to find a link to contact the site. What is wrong with that picture? Well, there is no way to correct an editorial error. If you see something on the website that talks about you, says horrible thing about you, you have no way to answer them. You cannot contact the people. There's no way to ask questions. If you see something that is important and you want to ask them a question, absolutely no way. There is no way to post an answer to anything that they are saying on their website. And there is no way to tell the webmaster there is a technical problem in his website. By example, that his website is using 100% of CPU on any machine displaying it if it's in Firefox. And why? Just the only thing that uses this 100% CPU is a wonderful little text scrolling horizontally letter by letter. It's just using 100% of CPU in Firefox, whatever else you use. So this is again so many problems at the same time that you don't know where to start. Another one that is extremely common, another problem that is extremely common. You have a website for a company and there is an email link, but the email link is not on the company domain. The email link is on Yahoo, Gmail, or any other generic domain. Why have I a problem with that? Well, it means that they don't know how to set up a web server for your domain. They just don't know. Well, why wouldn't do it? Even if they want to continue to use their email address on Yahoo or Gmail, they can do a forward very easily in just a few minutes. So if they don't do that, it's either that they don't know what they are doing on the web, and in that case I don't really want to deal with these people, or they're just absolutely not professional. It's not normal. Another example also. If you create a website and you put timed information on it, do a follow-up regularly on your website to update it. It's an example I found on the website of a Guadeloupe city. You know that I live on the island on Guadeloupe, and well, I had to find information about things happening in a small city nearby. And part of the website is up to date, so it's not that they just forgotten about it. The news about concerts, movies, all this kind of thing is up to date. But part of it is 4 years old. There is at some point on the website I was looking on news saying that the road work will start in September 2003. So it means that they didn't update that part of the website for 4 years. And again, that's not a guy doing the website in his garage. That's a whole city. So all these are really horror examples. The main problem is that, well, most of the websites are like that. You have a few really professional websites like Google, Amazon, things like that. People who are doing their living out of the web and really doing that seriously. And then you have all these websites that are just there because, well, you have to have a website. Well, I really hope that after these courses on WebDev, when you create a website either for yourself, for your company, or for customers, you will not build the website like that. You will think about all these little details that make a website a professional one, something that is giving customer confidence that they can use the website, reach their goal, pay what they have to pay, and get the merchandise or whatever you're doing on the website, but inspire confidence. Remember, when these people are dealing with your website, they don't know you, they never met you, they will never meet you. So the only thing that they can know about you is your website. When they see this kind of thing, what are they going to think? I know what I think. Now that we've seen a few of the things that you should never do, let's talk about all the things that you should always do. The first thing to do in your website is to test the user browser and settings. In my opinion, it should be something that would be available directly natively in WebDev with just a few checkboxes to check. It's currently not included, so you have to do it yourself, and we are going to see in detail how you can do that. By example, if there is no JavaScript enabled on your user browser, your website will not work. So tell him it won't work. It's not difficult to do, but at least when the user arrives on your website, it will have a message saying, sorry guy, you have to enable JavaScript in your browser if you want this website to work. Otherwise, technically, you won't go anywhere. And don't just tell him that. Remember that the user out there doesn't know what a browser setting is. Probably the JavaScript disabled on his machine is because somebody else put it that way. So if he really wants to access your website and you don't help the guy, well, you're going to just lose again a potential customer. So in your message, add a link to more information. By example, add a link to what is JavaScript, how to authorize JavaScript in Internet Explorer, Firefox, and so on. And remember also one thing, it doesn't have to be in your website. You don't have to write all these pages. You can link to pages existing out there on Wikipedia, by example, on anything else. There are two advantages of doing that. The first is that, well, you don't have to create the page in question. And the second is that, well, perhaps this user will believe something that is written in Wikipedia or somewhere else and not on your website, thinking that perhaps you are trying to entrap them, install viruses on their machine or whatever else. So by using a link to an external website, you can perhaps solve that problem too. Now, if it's not Internet Explorer or Firefox and your website has been tested only for Internet Explorer and Firefox, which is probably what you'll end up doing most of the time. So if the user is using anything else, Opera, Safari, anything else that was not tested, tell him that it's not tested. Don't tell him it won't work. You don't know that. Just tell him, well, when you arrive, sorry, this website has been designed to work and tested for Internet Explorer 7 and Firefox 2. You didn't test in 1.5, in 1, or Internet Explorer 6, 5, or 4. So tell the guy it was tested for Internet Explorer 7 and Firefox 2. And that's it. This way, he will know that if something doesn't work, he can do something about it. Link to the recommended browser download, your choice. You don't have to put links to Internet Explorer and Firefox. If you're saying, I personally recommend that you use Firefox to look at this website, well, you just put a download link for Firefox and you let him decide if he wants to install or not. This exact same way, if Java is not enabled on the user machine and you need it, because, well, the example of the sound comes to mind, or anything else, you're doing FTP transfer using a Java applet, or anything else where you need to have Java enabled for something on your website. Well, tell the user that your site or some specific function of your site won't work. And don't wait till the last moment to tell him that. Don't wait till... Imagine that you're using a Java payment system. If you wait till the user has chosen all the product he wants to buy from you, he entered all the information, and when he click on the Buy It Now button, it tells you, oh, Java is not working on your machine, you cannot buy, what will happen? Well, I'm telling you what I would do. I would just put you on my blacklist and never come back on your website. So if you're using Java somewhere on your website and the user arrives and Java is not enabled in his browser, tell him that something will not work if Java is not enabled, or work only in degraded way. And of course, tell the user how to enable Java the same way. Put a link to download for the Java machine if needed, information about what is Java, and so on. So you have the same problem with Ajax. If you're using Ajax, and I think that after the courses that you followed, you are going to use Ajax at least for debug, if not for anything else, but probably for other things too, and Ajax is not enabled, well, you need to tell the user that your site won't work or will work in degraded mode. After that, if the user still wants to use your website and, well, it takes 15 minutes to load the table with your 300,000 records in it, well, they will know why. Perhaps you should not even allow your website to be used without Ajax. Because, well, if the user has to wait 15 minutes to get the 300,000 record of the table, it means that your server will spend 15 minutes sending that data to him. And, well, perhaps you don't want that your server is busy for 15 minutes because of one user. So, possibly you will forbid anybody with Ajax not working to use your website. Link will not work, and that's the end of it. So that's just a list of the things that you will have to do all the time if you want your user to have really a good experience. Of course, you could consider that, well, most of the time all this is working on all the machines. Yes, you could say that, but remember what they say. One satisfied customer brings you 2 new satisfied customers. One not satisfied customer makes 10 more go away. So it's generally a good idea to deal with this kind of thing once and for all, and you will see that it's not very difficult. You can do that quite easily. So let's see how now. Once again, there is a WebDev project that is coming with this course. It's called WB Advices. And no, there's no class here because, well, it's only browser code, and browser code doesn't go in a class. Classes, code, object are not supported on the browser side. So what you have here, what you will find, is one page, which is an example, and all the elements that we're going to talk about are in that page. So we're going to test that page, and I'm going to test that page in my custom browser, which in that case is Opera. Why do I do that? Well, because Opera has a very practical thing built in called tools, quick preferences, and you can directly here enable or disable many things. By example, with just one click you can disable JavaScript. So what do we have in that page? On this page, the HTML test for JavaScript field is empty when JavaScript is enabled, but contains a friendly message with links when not. You should incorporate it in your index page, and perhaps a shorter version of remember in the model template you are using for your pages. So that's, you have the explanation. And now let's do a demonstration. Here JavaScript is enabled. Now I'm going in quick preference and I'm disabling JavaScript and doing a F5 to refresh the page. And suddenly I have this message. This website is using JavaScript. Please use a recent browser in which JavaScript is enabled. Without that, this website can't work. More information on JavaScript by Wikipedia, and it's just linked to a page on Wikipedia. And then another text saying, if you don't know how to enable JavaScript in your browser, follow this link to a Google support page on the subject. If you don't trust us, perhaps you'll trust them. And there's a link to Google. And if you go on the Wikipedia page, it opens in a separate tab in order not to close your website. And you have the JavaScript page with all the information about what is JavaScript, who did that, why, and what it's used for. And if you go the same way on the Google web, it's just a page telling how to set up JavaScript in this page or this browser or that browser and so on. And you can see that even that page at Google is out of date. Internet Explorer 6, Netscape Navigator 4.8, Mozilla Firefox 1.0. So that's 1.5. There's not the 2, there's not the 7. So it means that even on Google Help, you will have outdated information, which gives you an idea of the level of the problem. So at that point you can see also that here this field is empty. Well, because everything that is done here needs JavaScript to work. So let's enable JavaScript again. Quick preference, enable JavaScript, and refresh via F5. And what do we get here? Information about the browser and the fact that Java is enabled. Again, I can do quick preference, disable Java, do F5, Java is not enabled. Okay, so all these are just example on what is done in this page. Why do you have here Opera and Opera 9? Because one is done with the WebDev native function, and one is done by some JavaScript that I created for you. As you can see, the result is slightly different here, and that's not really the problem. We're going to show you what the problem is when doing the same thing in, by example, Firefox. I want to stop the test, and now I want to test that in the default browser or Mozilla Firefox. Few seconds, and you can see that here I have Netscape as the browser. Obviously we are not in Netscape, we are in Mozilla Firefox. It just happened that the WebDev function to identify a browser returns Netscape for Firefox, which is not really a good thing to do. So that's why I created a specific function in JavaScript that gives you the correct result. It's Firefox 2 here, and Java is enabled. Let's have a look now in the code bite. The first thing is this field with the message when JavaScript is not enabled. How do you do that? Well, you just put an HTML field somewhere, and in this HTML field you have this code. This code is just using the tag noScript, and the tag noScript in the HTML does something only when JavaScript is disabled. So that's all you have to do, and in there you're going to put a regular HTML code to display information. This website is using JavaScript and so on, and a regular link to different things. So this is absolutely normal HTML display stuff. The only thing, the extremely complex trick to do that is the noScript. I still don't understand why there's not just a checkbox in WebDev to do that. But obviously it's not very complex. Just have to copy and paste that on any of your page, and you will have the same information available. Now, how is this done? Well, if you go on the page onload code, you'll see that this field called browser is filled with different functions. The first one is browser name. It's a WebDev built-in function that you can currently forget about, as it returns Netscape when it's Firefox. So obviously it's not really accurate. It also doesn't return information about the version of the browser, and that's not enough. If you test only in Internet Explorer 7, you want to tell the user that if they're coming in with Internet Explorer 6, perhaps things will not work. So this function is currently, in my opinion at least, not usable, and that's why you have now a get browser function. It's a local procedure. Again, it's browser code, and we're going to have a look at what's in it. Again, all these commands, you're used to them now. Basically, we're using the JavaScript property command and asking the navigator object to return to us the user agent information. User agent information returns a string with extremely strangely formatted information, and you have here an example of what is returned based on what browser works. For Internet Explorer 7, it returns a string containing all that. Mozilla 4.0 compatible, MSEE 7.0, Windows NT 5.1, .NET CLR, and so on. So you can see there are many information that has absolutely nothing to do with what browser is what. And it starts with Mozilla 4.0, which it is extremely strange for Internet Explorer, but that's the way it is. For Netscape 8.1, it starts with Mozilla 5.0, and then you have Windows, U, Windows NT, NUS, RV, Geeko, and this, Netscape /8.1.3. Here, the information is at the end. Here, the information that we want to find is in the beginning, but not at the really beginning. For Firefox 2.0, it starts also with Mozilla 5.0, and that's the reason why, obviously, the WebDev function return Netscape. It starts by the same thing, so it's the same thing. Well, not really, because here, at the end of the string, you have Firefox 2009. And for Opera 9.24, it starts by Opera 9.24. As you can see, that is again an example of the browser compatibility or lack thereof. They even don't agree on how to return information about who they are. So if you just check on that, it's a problem. So this function after that, use that string and just check if there is MSIE in it, it's Internet Explorer 7. If there is Firefox /2, it's Firefox 2, and so on. So you can very easily and adapt it to what you tested your website for. Once we use the get browser information to get the browser, we want to check if Java is enabled. So here we're going to check if it's available or not. And again, it's a function that is written already for you. And this one is extremely simple because there is a JavaScript property for exactly that. And again, it's asking the navigator to answer is Java enable, true or false. So that's very easy. You could have, if the result is true, use a JavaScript method asking, by example here, to load your Java applet immediately and set the file name. This is an example to make some sound on your browser. And finally, we have this last line saying if Ajax available. Well, that's a native WebDev function, so you don't have anything to code there, and you just display the result. So that's all. As you can see, you have one HTML field and, well, 3 tests to know if your user is going to be able to use your website easily or not. Why is that not included in all websites done in WebDev? I do not know. It should be. It's extremely simple. It's very easy. Now you have the source to do it, and absolutely no excuses left if you don't. So I really hope that you will do it now. Of course, that is not all. The web is an environment that is extremely open, which means that you have to think about many things that you don't need to think about most of the time when you're writing a software. Remember, you want your user to come back. If a user installed your software on his machine, there's a good chance that it will at least try it more than once, because, well, it's installed, he took the time to download it, install it. So you have one chance of the guy trying your software 2 or 3 times at least before being totally disgusted and doing something else. But on the web, it's not the case. If you want your user to come back, you have to make an impression immediately. So give the user a way to come back. First, use the add favorite command in WebDev to add a link to bookmark the page automatically on your website. Don't forget this simple thing when you want your user to be able to easily come back. Another thing that you have to do if you want a user to come back is absolutely important, is to monitor your server performances regularly. It doesn't matter if it's your own server or if you're using a hosted solution. If the server or the bandwidth that you have doesn't match what your the number of users that are coming on your website, they will not come back. And that is something that's happening extremely fast. So you should always have tests in place to check your server. So ask people that you know to test it. Do it regularly. Have a software do it. Is your server up and running all the time? There's a test utility available in WebDev to check that. All this is extremely important. If your hosting solution doesn't perform, change it. But have a way to have your website up and running well all the time. I've read an article by a web design specialist a few months back, and basically the guy was saying it doesn't matter if your website is beautiful or ugly. The only thing that matters is that it will be remembered or not. You want an example? Well, think about my website. My professional website at fabriceharary.com is black. And then you have this white and maroon thing on it. Well, I've had many people telling me, oh yeah, I know your website is the black one. Yeah, it's the black one, absolutely. Nobody ever told me, oh, your website is beautiful. No, I'm sure that many of you think that my website is particularly ugly. I don't care. You know what my website is. If you think about me, yeah, he's the guy with the black website. There's no problem about that. You remember my website, which means that I did my job correctly. If I was an extremely good graphical artist, then I would have made something that is so beautiful that you will have to remember it. I'm not. So I found a solution for you to remember my website. I did something that is usable and you will remember it. So that's what matters on a website. It has to be remembered. Few other things that you shouldn't do. Don't use scrolling text everywhere. Oh, it's funny the first 5 minutes, but the user will not stay on your website for 5 minutes if he has to have text scrolling all over the place. It just gives you a headache, and that's the end of it. Don't use Flash and animation everywhere. I've seen websites made only in Flash. Well, it's certainly a very powerful tool. I'm not contesting that. Only, well, first, when you arrive on the website, you have to load it, and you have this wonderful loading 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%. When I'm arriving at 9%, I already closed the website and went to see something else. So, doesn't work. It will work only with people who have high speed bandwidth, and if your website is not overloaded also, because that's adding to what you need, the resource that you need. So you can use some Flash if you want, but don't overdo it. Again, animation is a very bad thing for the web. It's taking too much bandwidth. Don't try to invent the web. Somebody already did it for you. You don't need to. Look around how it's done. Think Google. White, few fields. Very, very little in terms of UI. Extremely simplistic. Zen. Well, it's the most viewed website on the planet. There must be a reason. The UI is working. The UI is extremely simple. You have basically no way of making a mistake, and well, there are extremely powerful options available in the few links that are available on the page. 98% of the people I talked to about this function Answer: oh, I didn't know you could do that. Did you know that you have a linguistic tools link on the Google page that allows you to translate automatically a web page in any language? Well, in many languages. You just give the URL and you have the page in French, English, German, Spanish, and so on. How many people do you think are using that compared to the number of people who are using the main function? Very few. That's why there's no reason to make a big thing out of it. So powerful options are available. They are not just in the middle of your face when you don't need them. Use common sense. I know that it's something that is very rare nowadays, but think what your users are going to need. Use common sense. Try to think what they will do when they arrive. Use beta testers. Ask your grandmother to test your website. Somebody who has no idea what your website does, and see how they react. Imagine a new user comes by. What is he looking for? Why is he here? Well, it could be a simple mistake, and in that case, perhaps you will be able to sell him something because he just found that, oh, you're saying that, that's good. But that's not a very common occurrence. Most of the time, if he didn't come to buy what you're selling, he won't stay. So, what is he looking for if he's looking for what you're selling? Is it easy to find things? I found a website that does what I need, sells me what I need, and is able to deliver on my remote island, but there's no search function on their website. If you don't go through category, subcategory, subcategory, and go through first page, second page, third page, you don't find the product, which is extremely boring. So if I find another website that does all I need and has a search function, I will use this other one. Even if it's a little more expensive, I don't care. I don't have the time to lose with that. So is it easy to find things? It's extremely important. Now, this user coming on your website, what does he need to know as soon as he arrives? Well, first thing, remember, he doesn't know who you are. So if there's anything that is specific about you, your website or your company, you want to tell the user very fast what it is. If all your products are only in Chinese, well, that would be a good idea to tell the user before you both lose a lot of time and energy. If your company is particularly proud of doing this or that, use your website, communicate. It's done for that. And remember, selling is not everything. After you sell something to the user, you also have, by example, to deliver the goods to the user. How are you going to do that? Where do you deliver? That's extremely important. When I arrive on a website, I'm connecting from Guadeloupe. Well, there are systems out there that allows you to know that this IP address is from that geographical region. So you could perfectly have immediately a message saying, we're sorry, but we are not delivering to Guadeloupe currently. If you want to deliver somewhere else on the planet, here is our delivery area. That's easy to do. You know a lot of websites that do that? Well, I don't, and I can tell you that it's extremely problematic when you live somewhere and you just can't find a website that tells you I won't deliver to you. When you have to first find the product, then order, then give your credit card number, your address, and all that, everything goes well, and then you never receive the goods. And why? Well, you ask them, they don't know. They even send the package through the delivery company, and the delivery company returned it with incorrect address. Not, we are not delivering in Guadeloupe, no, incorrect address. So you see how much time, energy and money you can lose, and not only your customer, but you at the same time, because your delivery company is going to bill you that whole mess. So it's extremely... You are not dealing with just your village, county, or even state. You're on the web, so you're dealing with the whole world. You have to deal with that. When you're talking about delivery, another important thing to tell the user is how much will it cost. I've seen a website where you have to first order the product that you want, and then they are telling you by email how much they are adding to the charge on your credit card. Well, I did that once because I didn't have any other choice. But if I have any choice, I will not use their website again, ever. I want to know how much they're going to charge my credit card beforehand, not after. So even if your system is working on the weight of the product, well, you have to deal with it, and you have to weight all your product and have that in your database and do the calculation and be able at any point to tell the user, well, at least to tell the user the delivery cost for your part of the world is that much. Even if it's not precise, you tell him it's going to be, I don't know, $20 per pound to go in China. I don't know, something, but give them an idea beforehand and give them a link on your main page with conditions, delivery information, whatever you want. You have this menu at the bottom of the page where you have the link to all the information. Have one page for the delivery. Have them even use a simulator saying, okay, if you have 3.5 kilos and or 7 pounds, it's going to cost you for that region of the world, it's going to cost you that much. This way they know. If they want to know, if they don't, you don't care, but the people who want to know, they will have the information. And remember, you want to give them that before checking out. Even if it's not detailed, you want to have at least some information about how much it costs before you have to pay for it. Another good example of problem that you have on websites is the technical support. If your website has a technical support because, well, you're saying things that are technical and people will call you with problem with these things and so on, well, that would be a good idea to tell them how they can reach the technical support. Not wait for them to have received the goods to be able to contact you, but perhaps they have a question before they order. So how can you reach you? By email, by phone, by Skype? Do you offer LogMeIn or VNC or anything like that to connect to their computer and help them? Tell them in which language you do support. Tell them if it's free or if they have to pay for it, how much it's going to cost. And tell them also when it's available. Is it 24/7? If it's from 9 to 5? If it's from 9 to 5, is it in which time zone? All this are simple information. It's very easy to put them into place on your website. But it means that somebody who's looking for information will not have to first contact you via email and wait 2 days to get the answer to know that he will not be able to use your services. That is not a good image that you want to give on the web. Remember, the web is exactly like a shop outside in a big street. You have this huge window here, and in it, what do you see? Do you see something that is going to attract you? Do you see something that is going to say, okay, that's really crappy what they have in there, I really don't want to go there, and I'm going to tell all my friends that they shouldn't go there because this is really not good? Is that the kind of image that you want to give? I hope not. And remember that it's the image that you will give if you don't take care of all these details. So I hope that after this whole day of courses about WebDev and how you should use it, you will be able to make really beautiful things. And well, don't hesitate to send me the links of your last creation. I will be very happy to have a look and see that my effort to help you understand all these things have had a good result. Thank you.